our costume analysis this week. This is doing the Superboy costume from the 1980s Superboy TV series. This one was interesting because we had two actors playing Superboy at the time. They were two gentlemen on your screen right there, Gerard Christopher on the right and John Haymes Newton on the left. John did the first season and then Gerard Christopher the subsequent seasons. And the costume didn't change too much. The S did a little bit and the way that the cape attached a little bit. But for the most part, we're going to be covering them as a whole. I will say just up front that the John Haymes Newton costume is probably the most comic book accurate costume live action of any live action version I have seen.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that as well.
All right, so let's jump straight into looking at the cape like we like to do, and we look at the way that the cape is attached there over the shoulders, perfectly tucks into the under the cape, under the collar. It's nicely folded over the shoulders, and some might say that the neckline's a little bit wide, but for me, it looks fantastic.
No, I agree with that completely. No complaints on this one. Really on just the entire costume, but especially the specifics of how the cape attaches to it. Yeah, I think it looks really sharp.
And Marc, it's got a nice length to it too. It comes down, about just at the bottom of the calf muscle there, just below the top of the boot. It's a nice flowing red cape, great material. What do you think?
Yeah, I like when it's just about calf length because any more it's a little too long. Any shorter it's too short. Not that there haven't been longer ones or shorter ones I didn't like. It's just that's just the right length. That's just how I how I like it. That's how I see it in my head. If there was a live action Superman.
Now, interestingly, they used a Christopher Reeve cape for this TV series because that's a different symbol on the back of the cape. That's the Christopher Reeve cape. So I think it was actually a Christopher Reeve worn film cape as well, because obviously it was the same producers who did the Superboy TV series as did the Superman, the movie, so the Salkind. So that was very interesting. But then we moved to the body of the costume. We're using the Gerard Christopher one here. It's pretty much just the blue tights. It's the Christopher Reeve type material. It's only got the seams just there, from the armpits up to the shoulder, and it's just really that one piece look.
Yeah, and again, very classic. I think that's one of the things that this show did very well was the costume. So the fact that it looks pretty much right out of the comic books is amazing.
Mm.
I think that part of the main objective um, was they wanted it to look as close to the Christopher Reeve costume as possible, while giving it its own little thing. But yeah, I mean, of all the costumes, I mean, these really are, I mean, right out of the comic. Right
Mm-hmm.
out of the comic. It just makes you feel good looking at these costumes because they give you that feel. Others have tried to add their own elements to it as they always do. But other than again, pretty much other than just the S changing a little bit, these are right out of the comic.
Yeah, this is as iconic as you can get, as classic as you can get. And the S symbol is just the right size on either of the costumes, as far as I'm concerned. There is the red on the John Haymes Newton one was a bit more bold, as far as it was a thicker type of line, where on the Gerard Christopher, it's a lot thinner, and the yellow kind of stands out a bit more because it's just got a bigger surface area. But the symbol is very iconic. It's more the comic book traditional trademark symbol rather than the rougher Christopher Reeve one. So spot on.
Yep. Yeah. This is the most boring one to cover because it's so good. There's not a
It's
lot
not.
to pick apart with it.
Yeah.
I do kind of prefer the John Haymes Newton S though.
Mm-hmm.
Of
Same.
looking at the two side by side,
Mm.
simply because I think it's just more vibrant and it. But to be fair, also, while they're both guys that are in really good shape, Gerard Christopher is a little beefier
Mm-hmm.
than John Haymes Newton, so they had to have different S's because it may not have looked as good on Gerard Christopher as it did on John Haymes Newton. So the changes kind of make sense there.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree there. And the trunks is an interesting one because here we've got pretty much a standard Superman trunk. It's not as long on the thigh as we've seen with the current one for a David Corenswet, but it's still very much classic red trunk, red hoops, and then you got the yellow belt as well with the oval, the double oval type of embossed buckle.
Yeah, this is kind of the baby bear trunks. It's not too hot, not too cold. It's just right.
Yes, I will agree on that.
Yeah, so there you have it there with the trunks. And the belt we mentioned already has just got that classic oval type double oval in there. And then we go to the gentlemen themselves, the faces. As you mentioned, Michael, John Haymes Newton is a bit thinner, a bit more lean. Gerard Christopher had a classic great look. Not that John Haymes didn't, but I think out of the two, I prefer Gerard Christopher's look over John Haymes Newton.
Yeah, I think the real difference between the two of them, and kind of edges it out towards John Haymes Newton, is that I'm assuming those are contact. His eyes are really blue, and they really pop on screen. But on the other hand, Gerard Christopher, his Clark Kent went through some changes, but his Superboy was pretty much consistent. It's interesting to see the difference. I don't know how to even say this. It looks like Christopher's hair is a little more unruly than John Haymes Newton's hair.
Yeah, he just looks a bit more of that natural wavy, where John Haymes Newton seems to be very much put into place.
Yeah,
I think
it's almost a helmet.
It looks like they were John Haymes Newton. They were trying to make him look a little bit more like Christopher Reeve, and that style. But with Gerard Christopher, they kind of let him have his own look, his own thing.
So there we have it. Out of a 10, I'm going to give this a solid 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm with you on there. I recently, for a guest appearance on Digging for Kryptonite, I watched about 10 or so episodes of the Lex Luthor episodes. And the thing that I always clocked is how vibrant the yellow S on the cape was. And yeah, that's, it was very much it was the Christopher Reeve cape, but it's something that just looks good, and it's made me miss it in like Superman Returns and Man of Steel and BVS. And it's kind of why I'm so glad to see that it's back. I guess basically computer animation has gotten to the point where they can track an S on the cape, maybe. I don't know.
So there you have it. That was our costume analysis for John Haymes Newton and Gerard Christopher's Superboy TV series from the 1980s costume. We will push on next week to go back a bit, and we will look at some of the alternate costumes. Maybe we'll do Smallville and look at the various attempts at costumes in that TV series. So we'll go with that.
That'd be a good one.